Hello everyone, I've just been watching a video from Dom, Boots on the Table with Gamer Dom, where he was painting up the starter set, one of the starter sets for Victory at Sea. And I'm quite interested in these rules, not because I intend to play them, although I am a very big fan of naval wargaming in general. It's more from the fact that Warlord's release is going to stimulate a lot of interest in naval wargaming, which is always a good thing. Um, yeah, to me, the apart from the fact that it is going to raise the profile of naval wargaming. The other thing that I like about the release are the models themselves. Always like ships and so on. But, and there's a very big but about this, part of the reason why I am drawn to the models is that they are quite a large scale. They're 1/1800th scale models, and really when you're talking about naval wargaming of what the World War II era, that is far too big to fit onto a decent size table. To give you an idea, my favourite set of rules, Sea Creek 5, recommends a table. If you're playing with guns that have ranges over sort of 40,000 yards, it's playing on it, or rather, if you want to play on a surface that's about 45,000 yards, then you need a table that's about 60 foot square, which is impossible. The models themselves, as I say, I think are really nice, and I personally, I haven't got a problem with these sort of hovercraft bases that some people disparage. To me, that it's the fact that it's not a simulation at all in any way, shape or form. It's simply a game, and good on you if you want to play games rather than simulations. But I in terms of naval wargaming, I tend to prefer more kind of realism, if you like, or more of a simulation than a game. But that being said, as I say, I welcome the fact that it's going to introduce people to naval wargaming, and hopefully once they're on board with it, they'll expand their sort of knowledge of wargaming rules, and maybe look at other rule sets and so on, and take more interested in naval wargaming in general. But this is the main reason why I want to make this video, and the reason why you're looking at this not particularly good quality photograph that I took from my back bedroom out of the window looking out to sea. It's really just to sort of raise one point that Dom sort of was talking about in his video, just to show how you can, once you get into the subject, you can begin to learn things and gain sort of knowledge that's not immediately kind of obvious to people. So he was talking about what he described as camouflage when he was talking about how he painted up his models. And I'm not trying to sort of criticize him at all, or pick him up on it, but camouflage is really the wrong way to think about painting your model, and the reason why some ships did have you know, why they had particular colours and why they had particular patterns painted on the ship. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that, just to sort of, you know, it might be of interest to people who don't know very much about naval history. So, as I say, this is a picture I took from my back window. To justify the poor quality, it is kind of at the extreme of my camera's zoom capabilities, and it shows a warship. Apologies, I've forgotten which warship it is. It's a sort of destroyer-sized ship of a foreign navy. I remember that much. I just can't recall which one it is. I was taking it for the purposes of showing what ships look like when viewed at a great distance, and to give you an idea of the distance, to the right of the picture on the horizon, you can see two things projecting above the horizon. One of them is the Eddystone Lighthouse, and next to it is a sort of smaller little stub, which is actually the base of the previous lighthouse that was washed away and destroyed in a storm a couple of 100 years ago. So you know, the sort of the foundations and the base of it are still there on the Eddystone rocks, but they're more or less at the same, you know, they're more or less side by side and at the same distance from my vantage point, which is about 15 miles away. If you were down at, I live on a hill. If you were down at sea level, you wouldn't be able to see that probably at all, and you can only see it on a clear day. It's not always visible. It has to be fairly good light conditions to be able to see it anyway. And the ship, now this is the interesting thing, the ship itself is a lot closer. It's probably about halfway, you know, between me and the Eddystone Lighthouse, so probably about 6 or 7 miles out to sea. And the idea that you need to camouflage that ship in any way, shape or form in order, you know, to make it less visible is not a kind of an accurate way of thinking about these things. The main reason ships are kind of usually grey, especially if it's sort of wartime conditions, is that everything, you know, is usually a sort of I mean, there's about, you know, how many shades of grey? I won't say 50 shades of grey, it leaves it on to a different subject, but everything is grey out there. If you were to paint it, you know, neon pink or something like that, it would stand out like a sore thumb. So there's no need to actually camouflage in order to conceal it. The ideas behind painting ships is really it's twofold. One is to throw an observer who is looking at the ship as a potential target. So you're trying to mislead people who are laying guns. So you're trying to mislead the observation of the ship to produce an illusion that it's possibly shorter than it is. Yeah, short is not really quite the word. You're trying to make it look as though it's a smaller target, and if you've identified what the target is, so you know what class of ship it is, then the site you know roughly how big that ship is. So if it appears smaller, it's actually appearing to you as though it were further away. So if you can make the ship look 10% smaller than it actually is, then you've kind of you've made it look as though it appears sort of like 10% or so further away. So you will misjudge its distance, and therefore your aim will be off. Your shots will go over the target because you're aiming at a target that's further away. Another point about these sort of zigzag patterns that are placed on the ships is that they confuse you as to the angle at which the ship is to you. So it's hard to tell the direction that the ship is going in. If you can make it appear, so if the angle of the camouflage, not the camouflage, I won't use that word, if the angle of the paint scheme makes it appear that it's sort of more obliquely kind of angled to you, or more sharply angled, more acutely angled to the observer, then you're going to misjudge the direction of the ship's travel, and therefore you're going to misjudge where to place your shots in terms of predicting where it will be when the shot lands. And remember, you know, like this is another point about the Victory at Sea rules, that they seem designed to be playing on a 6x4 or 4x4 table. They admit themselves that that's, you know, ridiculously small in terms of the ranges of these guns and so on. But very often in World War II, you know, shots were going over the horizon. So it's kind of crazy to sort of think about these games in Wargamers Anonymous used a very good description of it recently when he talked about playing naval war games with ships over you know a particular size was it came on a small table. It was like a knife fight rather than a naval battle, and that's a very good way of describing it. But anyway, getting off the point again. Yeah, so part of the paint scheme is designed to sort of make the ship appear, make it difficult to judge the distance it is from you, but it's also partly to make it difficult to judge where the ship is going to be next. And you know, you're not attempting to conceal the ship. You know, it's just impossible. You can see how that ship stands out like a sore thumb on the ocean in good visibility. Now, I said there were two reasons why you would want to paint a ship. You know, one of them is to do with throwing off gun laying, but the other is to sort of disguise the profile of the ship so that it's difficult to actually identify what it is in the first place. And this is to do again with once you can identify a ship, and you identified its silhouette, then you then know its specifics like its speed, its size, and so on. And this all helps with gun laying as well. It also helps you, you know, in terms of intelligence. And this is another reason why often ships wouldn't just attempt to kind of throw people off by painting their sides, but they would also try to very often alter the silhouette by putting up canvas funnels, so that it appeared that a ship would have 3 funnels rather than 2, for instance, or adding dummy kind of gun turrets, everything they possibly could to alter the appearance of the ship so that it couldn't be identified. and therefore the enemy's naval intelligence couldn't chart the whereabouts of particular ships and the danger they might pose to your convoys or to your own fleet. And there is a sort of third thing as well, which I kind of wanted to get onto next, which is ships are particularly apparent when they're thrown against the horizon like this ship is. If there is land in the background, for instance, then it becomes a lot harder to actually see a ship and identify it. And this is another reason why, depending on the sort of theatre of operations, you might want to colour a ship in a different way. So I suppose this is where you could begin to use the term camouflage. So, for instance, when the Bismarck was sailing along the coast of Norway on its final journey, they did actually temporarily adopt a paint scheme on the sides of sort of black and more sort of stark black and white kind of contrasting patterns, which against the sort of the background of the Norwegian fields made it very difficult to identify. You would certainly still see it was there, you know. But another good example is the Battle of Coronel, where the German fleet was thrown against the sort of seen by the British fleet against the landscape of the coast of Chile, whereas the British fleet had the sun kind of rising above them or falling behind them. What would it be? It must have been, yeah, it must have been the sun setting behind them. But anyway, the British fleet was in stark kind of silhouette and much easier to hit. But you can't do anything about that with camouflaging. It just doesn't work. So I wanted to show you next a still, which is then going to it's going to morph into a moving picture of another ship, which is the Hessen, which is a German ship of an equivalent size to this destroyer here. Okay, now you're looking at another ship, the Essen, as I say, exactly the same size virtually as that previous vessel, and it's taken from the vantage point of the water. I'm on a ferry on Plymouth Sound, and I'm only about a mile away from the ship, mile and a half. So this really is close up in terms of gunnery ranges and so on. I'm talking, by the way, I'm using these ships as examples, but the weaponry and so on is totally different in contemporary period to the to World War II. But I'm trying to talk in terms of World War II naval warfare. And I think, well, you can just about make the ship out, I think, with the eye of faith, and it's really hard to see. You know, it's against the backdrop of the shore, and the visibility. It's a nice day. It's a nice sunny day, but there's a little bit of mist and so on. Virtually invisible, and in fact, if you were to have painted a paint scheme on that ship, it would actually be a lot easier to see rather than harder to see, because you would be able to make out patterns and so on. But all you can really see of it is where the sun is sort of illuminating the sort of forward aspects of some of the superstructure. Right, so now I'll start this video going, and you'll immediately, almost immediately, see how close that ship is and so on. Right, there we go then. It's just a short little thing that I thought might be of interest to novices of naval wargaming and so on. Just to sort of whet your appetite as to the interesting aspects of naval wargaming that you're going to experience if you pursue your interest, and you know, Victory at Sea gets you into the subject. So thanks very much for watching, and see you again.